Yeah, I'm not necessarily going to introduce myself very much other than the fact that I'm Kate, and yeah, I'm a human being that struggles like everybody else and was, drawn to self-compassion work. And I'm just, yeah, really stoked to share this with you today. So my professional background is so I'm a mental health nurse, worked clinically for the last 30 years and specialized in a number of different modalities, including mindful self-compassion. So this presentation, as you'll see, I've called it Reconnecting with the Power of Our Own Physiology. So one of the things that I love about this work is that it isn't about fixing anybody or taking anything away from them, removing anything, or adding anything to them that they don't already have. It's about them reconnecting with the power of their own physiology, of what they've already got inside them. So it is an empowering practice. We'll talk more about that, but that's why I've called it that. So I'd like to just start off, as I always do, is acknowledging my own teachers. So I have some human teachers that this is predominantly based on Dr. K.Neff and Chris Gomer's work, and also Professor Paul Gilbert, and a dear teacher up in the North Island who I did a lot of my own mindful self-compassion work. Her name is Anna. And of course, many, many, many others along the journey. But I also want to acknowledge my other teachers, my non-human teachers. And so this is Sam. Sam's my Labrador, my love puppy, as I call him. And so he is definitely, he's a mindfulness teacher and a self-compassion teacher. So he role models to me being in the moment, and the way that he sees me, the way that he looks at me. You can sometimes just seeing that in another being, that they see you with love, can be a reminder of that in ourselves when we don't necessarily always see it. So he's a big part of my self-compassion practice, and I noticed this morning, as well, as as I was having my breakfast, and I stood up and he did his usual kind of like rolled over to have his tummy tickled, and I noticed myself saying, "Oh, I love you. You're so beautiful. I love you." And then I kind of reflected on that, of like, "Ah, wow. And what would that be like if I treated myself in the same way?" Yeah. And so there's this lovely thing that resonates with me and may resonate with you, is, talk to yourself like you would do your beloved pet. Yeah. So that's Sam. And then my other main teacher and inspiration on a daily basis is nature. So nature just allows me to soften in and remember that I am nature. I'm not separate, which means that I have rhythms and seasons and cycles. I'm not always going to be at my best. I'm not going to always be feeling enthusiastic and energetic. That sometimes, yeah, there's fruiting and blooming, and sometimes there is going within, slowing down. So, just a way that nature can also remind us that, yeah, to be compassionate to all parts of ourselves, all seasons of ourselves. Yeah. So today's presentation is going to be a little bit of a mix of both the science and the theory, and then some of the experiential, so the how to be more self-compassionate. So we're going to do a little bit about the what it is, the why we want to do it, and the how. So there will be some exploration and some practices if you wish to involve yourself, and some opportunity to share after those if that feels right for you. I mean, we're a small group, but usually I kind of leave big questions until the end so that, that seems to flow better. But let's just see how we go. And I've got a whole load of follow-up resources. So you don't need to be necessarily remembering every single thing that is being said, because there's lots of really good resources. So just letting it just kind of wash over you a little bit. The bits that are meant to stick will stick. Yeah. So just giving yourself permission to just let the presentation gently wash over you. I find it a helpful way to receive this work. So as we've already mentioned, that, self-compassion is not easy for many of us, and that includes myself. That's why I came into this work for me initially. So really today's presentation is to get it a little bit on the map as a possibility, maybe. For some of you that have already touched on this work, then it may be, another opportunity to reflect on self-compassion. Yeah, so as it's been mentioned, if self-criticism or self-judgment or harshness to ourselves has been going on for a long time, then it's going to also take time for that to change. But it is changeable. It is changeable. And it just, as we mentioned before, is insidious and often changes very slowly and gently over time. Not necessarily in a big firework display or epiphany, in my experience. I just want to, again, just revisit around how to look after yourself. This is about self-compassion. So, of course, being self-compassionate with with our session today is really important too. So, as I mentioned in the preamble on registration, this work can be really tender, yeah, and it can bring up emotions that are maybe preventing us from, or get released when we move towards ourselves with compassion. So really the permission is to do exactly what you're doing, getting yourself comfortable, having your camera on or off. If your camera's on, don't feel like you've got to be kind of like, completely, facing the screen. So just do what feels right. Allow yourself to zone in, zone out. Yeah. If it does feel really intense at any time, then give yourself permission to just pull back. Get yourself a glass of water, stroke your pet if you've got one there. Yeah, and if you need to take a break, then, please do that. So one of the benefits, of course, of we've already done this session live face-to-face, and so Rose and Wendy have been through this presentation already. But one of the benefits of doing it in our own space is that hopefully you can, find a way that really supports you. So if that's lying down, or making sure that you've got, your favorite soft pillow with you, or whatever kind of makes you feel comfortable and nurtured. Just even noticing before we start what in your environment feels nurturing right now. Maybe it's something you can see, or something you can feel, maybe something even you can hear. For me, it's the view outside, some birds. It's tuning into what feels resourcing right now. Okay, so let's very gently start exploring this mindful self-compassion together. So as I said, this is not my work. This is, so I've trained with Dr. K.Neff over the years. She pioneered this research probably about 20 years ago now. And as I said, this started with my own exploration. So it started with my own personal journey, and then I decided to bring it into my clinical work, as I found that it was kind of the missing piece for a lot of people. Like, they were doing all this really good stuff, but they were kind of still doing it with a level of self-judgment or self-criticism. So to me, it kind of felt like doing the good stuff, but doing it because it's the kindest thing to do rather than because I should do it, really felt important. So I have to share that when I first came across this work, there was quite an aversion to it. So I didn't kind of go, oh, self-compassion, lovely, and dive straight in there. There was not that experience at all. I found it very difficult, and I am, to be honest, kind of was like, no, I'm not really sure this is for me. I don't really feel, I acknowledged that I needed it, but I didn't feel that I could access it. I didn't really feel like I had the equipment for it. I felt I had the equipment to be compassionate to others, but the bit going inwards was kind of not accessible for me initially. And I'm grateful for the fact that something that I did connect with was mindfulness. And I started to have quite it became a really big part of my life, mindfulness practice. And what that started to show me, I was on a 2-week retreat actually in the UK about 15 years ago. And I just really got to see with the increased awareness and the increased awareness of my thoughts, of actually how relentless my self-criticism and judgment was. I hadn't really seen it in full focus before. And so it wasn't just the sort of over big, unpleasant sort of self-critical stuff. It was all this subtle niggling away, nitpicking, not quite right, got to do it better, all that kind of just under the surface. And so that really motivated me, because it was like, wow, here I am doing all of this stuff to reduce stress, and I'm still noticing that actually there's a lot of harm coming from the way that I'm treating myself and talking to myself. So that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. And then really with the mindfulness practice, and as I started to train to be a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher and learning about the neuroscience of mindfulness, is I got more and more of an understanding of this neuroplasticity, that what we pay attention to and practice over and over again starts to shape us. And the good news about that for me was, even if I didn't believe or that I felt worthy of being compassionate to myself, I knew that if I did the practices, they would still have a change and an impact on me. Yeah. So I knew I could practice myself into being more compassionate to myself, rather than needing to believe it, so to speak. So let's just be clear about what we're talking about with self-compassion. So K.Neff talks about this that self-compassion is about treating ourselves with the same care and kindness and concern that we would do a good friend when they're in pain or difficulty. Okay. So how we would show up for someone that we cared for. And I think it's important to acknowledge that pain, when we use the word pain, that can be, you know, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual. That pain is pain. It all matters, big or small. Yeah. We're not into comparing the size of it. Yeah. If it hurts, it matters. Yeah. So really, these practices are about how we show up for ourselves when the shit's hitting the fan. Yeah, when we're not having a good day, when it's a struggle. Yeah, when we're in pain, when we've messed something up. Yeah, that's where these practices come in. So as I've already mentioned, one of the things I really love about this work is that we don't even need to believe it or believe we're worthy of it. We can practice ourselves into change. I love this idea of, you know, like that we all have this seed of self-compassion and that these practices just water that. Yeah, so that it can grow and come forward. So rather than it, you know, being something that we have to bring in or add to ourselves or remove or take away from ourselves, this is just about really watering the seed that is already inside all of us. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but the seed in more sort of concrete, practical terms is actually our physiology. So our physiology, the stuff that we're made up with, is actually designed to be able to be compassionate, not just to others, but for ourselves. It's part of us. It's our birthright. So again, we're not pretending to be self-compassionate. We're not, you know, doing something that fixes something that's wrong with us. We're really reconnecting with our innate physiology that's already inside us all. The other thing that I find really helpful is that, again, we don't have to get into this argument with the mind, this conditioned mind that we all have, that will have all sorts of ideas about whether we're worthy of self-compassion, how we move towards ourselves in pain. We don't even need to go there with these practices. There's no arguing with the mind. Good luck with that, in my experience. Is we just go straight to the body and the nervous system. Yeah, so that is the sort of the unconditioned parts that recognizes compassion for ourselves and for others. So again, these practices are empowerment practices. And when we've experienced a lot of feelings of powerlessness, yeah, of powerlessness over our bodies, our health, you know, around healthcare systems and all of those things, is that this is a place that we can do something about. Yeah, this is where our power lies, how we show up in those moments of difficulty for ourselves. So as Kristen says, these practices are because it hurts. It's not to get rid of anything. This is what we can give ourselves, even when we can't get rid of what it is that is causing us distress. We give ourselves compassion not to get rid of anything, but purely because it hurts. Just noticing how that lands for you. this brings me joy every time I see it, and I've looked at it many, many times over the years. And some of you will be familiar with dear Michael Leunig. He's over in Aussie, and as a profound, I mean, he's so much more than a comic, you know. He's his stuff is really profound for many people. So here in a nutshell is self-compassion. He says, "Come sit down beside myself," I said to myself. And although it didn't make sense, I held my own hand as a small sign of trust. And together I sat on the fence. Again, just noticing how those words resonate or don't resonate. Maybe noticing it touching, but also noticing maybe a barrier or a numbness to it. But all of those are welcome. Hey. So of course, it's so sounds so much easier than it is. So we're all here for a reason. Yeah, it's because this isn't easy to do. And yeah, so acknowledging that there's a lot of things that can get in the way of us being able to bring compassion inwards, even if we're really good at it going outwards, which many of us are, is something's got in the way of it being able to come inwards. Yeah. So compassion for as I see it, compassion for ourselves and others is part of our innate physiology, but something's got messed about with in the coming towards ourselves. Yeah. So I talk about the marinade that we're all in. And of course, our flavor of marinade is all different. Yeah, on how we were brought up and where we live and what we've experienced. So this is what we've absorbed, we've been marinated in, our social cultural marinade. And that will have an influence on what we've learned about compassion for ourselves and for others. So this may or may not be true for you, but for some in Western culture particularly, is that there may be all sorts of explicit or implicit messaging about compassion that it makes it that we're good if we're very compassionate to others, that it's reinforced, it's seen as a really good thing. And interestingly, when we show compassion for ourselves, so we move towards ourselves with care when we're in trouble, is that this can often have a negative connotation. Yeah, so that we're being weak or selfish or self-indulgent, self-pitying, that we're just, you know, especially I can say this because we're all women here, especially there's some gender stuff here for women, is that, you know, we can often find it even harder to be able to feel okay about being compassionate to ourselves because of, and I won't go into it, but you know, we live in a patriarchy and we are, you know, modeled around these gender differences from a social cultural perspective. So just really reflecting on this for yourself. And interestingly, when we go into the research more, is that the research really clearly shows the opposite, that self-compassion actually increases motivation, increases our ability to be with the difficult stuff and to be there for others. So it's not selfish or unmotivating. So just noticing for yourself, what sort of marinade have you had? What your beliefs are about being compassionate to yourself when you're struggling? Even prioritizing your own needs. Wow, radical. And what gets in the way of self-compassion for you? What are those beliefs? What is your marinade? So just noticing those to yourself. What sort of messages have you picked up along the way? So if you'd like to join me, we're going to now bring this into a more experiential way of exploring. It's just going to be a couple of short reflections if you would like to join. Yeah, so just looking after yourself, choosing examples that are sort of not in the realm of traumatic, just something on the mild scale. If you'd like to join me, I'm just going to guide us through a short couple of reflections. So if it feels okay to, just bringing your awareness either to the sounds or to your body as it is sitting or lying, whatever position it's in, just noticing yourself and your body. Maybe even bringing awareness to the rhythm of your own body right now. Just allowing yourself to reflect a little in this way, bringing to mind a situation where a friend, so it can be a human or a non-human, that this friend is having a bit of a struggle, imagining that they're here with you, they're having a bit of a struggle, in some sort of difficulty, they're feeling confused, or maybe they've messed something up, not feeling so good. Imagining that they're here with you. How do you typically respond? So we're just gently noticing, there's no right or wrong answer. How do you respond when a friend is in bother? What do you notice in your body? What do you want to do? Maybe you want to move towards them, maybe move away from them. Sort of tone of voice do you use or words do you offer? Noticing how you respond. And then just bringing your awareness back outwards again towards sounds. Just opening your eyes if they've been closed, having a little bit of awareness of what's around you. So if anybody is willing to share, and remembering there's no right or wrong answer here, but when it's another, what do you notice you want to do towards this friend when they're having a bit of a bother?
I was only going to share that, and because I've been doing a lot of inward work lately to try and change the patterns, but for me, I'm a very compassionate person. However, so outwardly, I notice I'm really compassionate. I'll go and hug them, I'll be there for them, but inwardly, I'm frustrated.
Yeah, beautiful noticing.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated that why aren't they getting this? Like,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
like, how many times do I have to have this conversation for you to still be in the same place? And
yeah.
but outwardly, and so I wonder whether I'm, by having a conflict inside myself, by by being one person, but there's another side inside me that's something different. That, yeah, sometimes I wonder whether I'm not being true to myself by doing that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I won't be the only one with that experience, hey? Because I'm aware of noticing that in others and in myself, and so and a beautiful noticing of seeing how these two different experiences can arise, yeah. Um, and I think, maybe more than it being, oh, maybe I'm not being, authentic with this, is that maybe this is a place where you can reflect and is this also relevant to how I treat myself? Yeah. So,
Mm.
it's like often this is a mirror of
Yep.
the level of frustration that maybe we hold towards ourselves as well,
I think that's actually exactly right, Kate. So because I've been reflecting a lot on what are my patterns of behavior that are affecting the way my mind is working, and frustration to me is probably my biggest emotional pull. So I wonder whether, because I'm sensing that, yeah, that's why I say I'm not sure that I'm being true to myself, but so acknowledging it, I felt, was a really important step.
Absolutely. And yeah, deep bow to you for that and for sharing it. It's so helpful. That this is our reality, is that we get these kind of mixed responses. And I think, as you said, the frustration sounds like it's really important. Yeah. Of like how that relates to how you treat yourself. Yeah. So, yeah, we're allowed to feel frustrated towards others, and also going, that's interesting. I wonder if that's playing out with how I treat myself as well. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as some others, I can't see all of you, so I don't know if there's anybody else wanting to share. But you may have noticed that you want to maybe give them a hug, yeah, or move towards them. You may want to run away. And did anybody notice, like, did you want to say anything to this friend? What sort of words you used or tone of voice?
I think I wanted to listen and use kind words.
Yeah, so that's wanting to hold space, wanting to listen, acknowledging that sometimes that's also what we need. And so there's this relationship between how we show up for others and how we show up for ourselves. So, I kind of think sometimes when we're really good at listening and validating other people's experience is because maybe part of us is really wanting that for ourselves as well. So when we move towards these experiences with kindness and curiosity without judgment, is we can really get to see some helpful stuff. So thanks. So kind words, moving towards, maybe touch, maybe your experience, or of course may not be, depending on our level of frustration and overwhelm and unmet needs that are going on for us. Yeah. So we're going to do the reflection again, if you would like to join. This time, though, it's going to be you who's having a difficult time. So just coming into your body, if that feels okay, to feeling your feet, feeling your body lying or sitting. So you have a bit of a sense of your own body. So this time it's you that's having a bit of a struggle. It's you that's in some sort of difficulty, feeling confused, maybe you've messed something up, not feeling good. How do you approach yourself? How do you typically respond to yourself when you're the one that's having a struggle. And again, just noticing, how do you talk to yourself? What words, tone do you use? Just noticing what happens inside your body, how you feel, what you want to do, any urges that arise in you. This time, whether you want to move towards yourself or away from yourself. Just noticing, no judgment, no right or wrong. Just being curious how you treat yourself when you're having a difficult time. Again, just bringing your awareness outwards, being aware of the room, sounds. So did we notice that this was the same or different when it's us that's having a struggle? Any noticings that you're willing to share?
I thought describing frustration was an emotion that was quite relevant to me. But when I turned it around to myself, things that went through my mind was that you know, you've got up there, what do you want to do? Well, as I was reading that, I was also thinking to myself, I'm always asking myself, what else do I need to do? And so I don't sit with myself and give myself that self-compassion, because I keep thinking, what do I need to do next? And I've noticed inside of me that brought on anxiety. But if I compare it to the outward side of me trying to help someone, I can also associate anxiety involved with that, and I think that comes after the frustration.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
And so I try to help somebody else, so it's that must do thing again.
Yeah.
And then I get frustrated, and then I get anxiety, because then I start to wonder what I've done wrong, you know, what else could I have done, how could I have done it better? And then the perfectionist takes over.
Yeah.
And the perfectionist takes over as well when it comes to looking at how I might do anything to help myself.
Yeah.
I might have gone over the top there with my analysis, but that's me.
No, absolutely not. I just want to thank you for sharing and your wonderful noticing and insight of how these two are interrelated, how we show up for ourselves, yeah, and the angst of the, you know, what I need to do, yeah, what do I want to do, what do I need to do, of, you know, this stuff's so important. And thank you for sharing your insights with us. That there can be the frustration and the angst towards ourselves, that it makes sense that also then flavors how we feel when others are also in distress. How do we know what to do with others when we're still working out how to look after ourselves compassionately? Yeah.
But what about the empathy side of things, though? Because I think we're very good on the empathy side of things towards others, but I can't say I give that to myself very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So the empathy is the what we call the empathic resonance, the noticing of the suffering. And yes, so many of us don't notice that in ourselves. We've already skipped right over it, or we've distracted, or we've not validated it, or we've made it not so important than someone else's. So before we can be compassionate to ourselves, we have to notice that we're actually suffering and that it matters. Yeah. So the self-empathy sounds really important, noticing that we are having a struggle and that matters. Yeah. So again, reflecting on, there'll be all sorts of reasons why we have unlearnt or disconnected from those parts of ourselves that can feel our own pain and move towards it. Yeah. And so just gently reflecting on, all of the causes and conditions that may have led to that. And the fact that we don't need to even understand them to be able to change them. So some of the practices that we're going to offer just allow us to be able to notice our own pain and move towards it with care. Yeah. Thanks. Anybody else have anything any differences between self and other?
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about it. And I think as I've got older, I've approached it a wee bit differently. I'm not quite as demanding on myself. So I think if I feel bad about things, I see it as a sign of weakness. And then, but as I've got older, I've sort of thought, well, no wonder you're feeling like that. You haven't had enough sleep, you're tired, or, no wonder, this and this has happened. So, of course you're going to feel so and so and so and so, So I think with experience and age, it's sort of helped a little bit. Not that I'm over the hill yet, hopefully, but, but that's sort of my experiences. It's got easier perhaps as I've got older. I'm not expecting, maybe not so hard on myself, maybe.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. So acknowledging that these things can shift and change. As a woman who's currently, some of you may relate, as a woman who's currently going through perimenopause, that can also be a time where those things start to shift and change, of like, having to actually go, you know what? I need to treat myself better. I need to cut myself some slack here. And so, this noticing the difference between how we are towards ourselves and towards others can be enlightening and even disturbing, and I run groups on this and done this practice with people, is that people can get a bit of a shock of like actually how unpleasant they are to themselves and how mean they are, that they wouldn't even dream of doing that to someone else. Yeah. Of negating their own pain or belittling themselves, or really using some quite unpleasant, strong language towards themselves even. Yeah. So if that is you, then just actually go, whoa, okay, that there may be a bit of a difference between the two. So just putting it in a framework of self-compassion so that it doesn't necessarily, sometimes if I'm offering things on mindful self-compassion, especially in good old conservative North Canterbury, it's like as if I'm going to be teaching some woo-woo sort of fluffy stuff. So let's kind of just ground it in some physiology, some good old science and physiology. So this is compassion for self and others in our physiology is not seen as separate or different. The system that we have is for both. It's for compassion outwards and for compassion inwards. It doesn't differentiate it. So that's what I mean by this is our innate physiology. We're born with it. And there's an interesting paradox with this work is that for some of us, or many of us, is that actually there's a paradox of the body being not only the source of our suffering, but also the source of our healing as well, and our connection with the self-compassion. So with the self-compassion, this is now about us befriending our bodies and our physiology, because this is part of our healing, to be able to treat ourselves differently and reduce stress. So the physiology, if we remind ourselves that, of course, we are mammals, we are, we might think we're a bit fancy, but but we are still mammals. And so mammals have these three main systems that we're running off, that you will recognize. One of them is the dopamine reward system. That's the bit that makes us go and get things and then feel good about when we've received them. That's our motivation system. We also have a safety and threat system, which is about keeping ourselves safe, which you'll also be familiar with. And then we've got this mammalian caregiving system. So in the caregiving system that we have, this is the system that is designed for caring and compassion. So it's designed to be the soothing system towards our pain, towards others' pain, and towards our own. So that is part of all mammals. And it's to do with peer bonding and looking after young and all of those things. Whether that is what we use it for, it's also about soothing pain. Yeah. So the chemicals or the hormones that get released when we stimulate the mammalian caregiving system are really important. So you will maybe recognize some of these. Oxytocin, which some of you may know is related to, gets released when we breastfeed. It gets released when we hug someone, when we stroke our pets, when we do self-soothing gestures. Oxytocin gets released. Or if you're like me, when I watch videos on social media about puppies and you know, kind of cute things, then that's also flooding the system with oxytocin. Yeah, it feels good, it feels soft, it feels warm, it feels loving. Yeah, so this is one of the chemicals that gets released with this system. The other one that's really important to know about is that when the caregiving system or our compassion system is stimulated, we release endorphins, painkillers. So this feels really important. Yeah, this is our soothing system that we've all got, but because of our marinade, we've been told we can't use it. And instead our culture says, you know, run around doing this, or drink booze, or you know, go around caring for other people. Whereas, you know, we've got our own soothing system. We've just been maybe, yeah, marinated out of giving it to ourselves. So the oxytocin and the endorphins are known to reduce the stress hormone cortisol and, of course, relieve pain. I would call that a soothing system. Yeah. Reduces pain, reduces stress. So we all have this within us. So the way that we activate or stimulate our own soothing system to release the oxytocin and the endorphins is what you may have just heard about, is soothing touch and soft vocalization or kind words. So here we are, we've all got this soothing system, and we can activate it through soothing touch and soft vocalizations. Yeah, just like I did with Sam this morning, telling him how beautiful he was. Yeah, he would have been enjoying that. So yeah, here we are, we've got all of this available to us if we can find a way to give ourselves permission to give it to ourselves. So this is why I talk about it being our birthright. It's us coming home to ourselves, you tapping into your own soothing balm. Yeah. And that to me then has a sense of agency and empowerment. It's not about someone else giving it to us or getting rid of something for us or writing us the right script for the right medication, not meditation. Is that this is the bit that we can do something about when it hurts and when we're in difficulty. Okay. And again, reflecting on what Kristen says, that this isn't about getting rid of it, it's about being with it because it's difficult. This is our soothing balm. So one of the ways that has been shown by the research done on self-compassion practices is that it reduces our stress. And I've put physiological stress because like body stress, like activated nervous system when we're stressed, okay? So I see this work as the missing link in stress reduction. So when, as we know, if someone is mean or attacking us in some way, then our wonderful nervous system activates its threat system and releases its stress hormones, okay, in an attempt to protect us by either running away or fighting or any of the other options that are available. So this is an important part of us, is to be able to activate our stress and threat system when we're under attack. The problem is, though, is that if we're the ones that are being mean to ourselves, putting ourselves under pressure, being mean to ourselves when we're not doing well, you know, criticizing ourselves, judging ourselves, we've heard about perfectionism, you know, all of those things, then we become the attacker and the attacked. So when someone else is being mean to you, it activates your threat system. When you're being mean to you, it activates your threat system. So we can do all of these wonderful myriad of activities to reduce our stress. But if we're still doing it in a pressurized, mean way, then we're still activating threat in our system. It's what I call the tiger within. Yeah. How much threat is being activated by the amount of pressure that you put on yourself. And so here we can see clearly that self-judgment, self-criticism activates the stress system, which of course increases pain, fatigues us, creates inflammation, all of those things. Whereas self-compassion reduces the stress response. It reduces cortisol, releases endorphins, which then can help with some of those things around pain and inflammation. So really, it does matter. It does matter how we treat ourselves when we're in difficulty, when we're having a struggle. And people will often say to me, yeah, that's all very well, but I literally don't know how to treat myself kindly. Like the words they're just not there. I don't have that available to me. And this can be a really common experience, especially if that hasn't been something that's been modeled to us. And so what I say is if you don't know what to say to yourself when you're having a struggle or you're hurting, is ask yourself, what would I say to a friend or an animal right now? Or maybe turn it around. What would they say to you? Sometimes that can give us an inroad into something different. Yeah. So this is actually a picture of my beloved Mia. As you can see, she was very old. She was actually 34 when she passed this year. But her legacy lives on, as you can see. And she was a very strong, self-compassionate, female figure in my life. So I use her picture for this to remind myself of how would I talk to someone else, or how would they talk to me? I chose this picture because I kind of like this idea of that we've all got this kind of bottle of soothing balm available to us, that we can, now give ourselves permission, hopefully, to utilize a little bit more. But it also kind of has a double meaning in the fact that one of the ways that we can use our favorite moisturizer or whatever cream we need to put on our skin to care for ourselves, that we can do that in a way that is caring and gentle and compassionate. It's kind of got a bit of a double meaning. So I'm going to offer us up now a couple of practices. So we're now getting into the how, into the, that's all very well as a concept, this self-compassion, but how do I do this? And so I'm going to offer us a couple of really practical ways to bring self-compassion into your life. This is now based on the physiology that we've just talked about, that when we use soothing touch and soothing vocalizations, is that we can activate the mammalian caregiving system, aka our compassion system, which then releases oxytocin, endorphins, and reduces stress and soothes us, basically. So I'm going to offer us this, I sometimes call it biohacking. So we don't need to have an argument with our minds about it. We're just going in straight through the bio, or the body, to the nervous system. So I'm going to offer this as a little exploration. And again, there is no right or wrong experience. We're all going to have different experiences. But if you can just be curious about your experience, then that often can be helpful. But of course, if this is not feeling like a good time to be doing something like this, then please give yourself full permission to just listen, or participate as much or as little as you want to. So if you'd like to join me, again, just bringing your awareness to the feel of your body, sitting or lying or whatever position you're in right now. Just noticing that you have a body. Be noticing the contact points with the chair or what you're sitting on or lying on. And the rhythm of the body. And so we're going to have an exploration of what soothing touch feels helpful for you. And of course, we're all different. So just exploring what feels good. If something doesn't feel good, then just move on or skip it out. So we're going to start off with gently placing one hand into the other hand so that you are literally holding your own hand. Just noticing what that feels like to hold your own hand. Maybe even just exploring, maybe changes in pressure, maybe a little squeeze of one hand. Maybe it feels good to just gently stroke or rub. Just having the sense of holding your own hand. Feeling the touch, maybe the warmth of the one hand on the other. Just noticing if any words arise as you just do this. Gentle hand holding. It's being the giver and the receiver of your warm, caring touch. And then the next one that we're going to explore is placing one of your hands over your heart area. Just finding that spot that feels okay or the place that feels good. So just place your hand over your chest, over your heart. Just letting that soak in. Letting the warmth and the touch just soak in. Maybe just exploring different types of pressure, lighter or firmer. Just being curious how this feels. Sometimes people even just gently circle the hand or any other movement that feels good. Again, just noticing if any words arise, any kind words that arise as you do that. What do I need to hear right now? I'm going to just explore another one if you'd like to join me. This one is just gently touching the hand or maybe both hands, just for gently on the face. You may just rest your face in your hands, or maybe there's some stroking. Just noticing what that feels like. Just letting yourself soften into your hands. Just noticing how that feels. no right or wrong. And another one that sometimes people find helpful is literally giving ourselves a hug. So this can be very open and gentle with the hands just on the upper arms, or maybe it feels like it needs to be a little bit kind of tighter and more squeezy. It's just playing around with that, of like whether gentle or firmer pressure feels good. And again, maybe even just rubbing or stroking. Noticing what that feels like. Just letting yourself receive. Letting yourself receive this warmth and care. And then the final one, just to be curious about, is a little bit different. So this one, just a very gentle fist in one hand and just placing that over the heart area, just gently, just a soft fist. Just noticing how that affects the body to just be having that soft fist over the chest, how that makes you feel. How it affects the rest of the body. And then taking the other hand and very gently, just softly wrapping that hand over the fist, like a warm blanket over it. Just noticing how the breath moves under this, how this feels. So this is a representation or an embodiment of both aspects of self-compassion, both the strong, protective parts of it, the bits that stand up for ourselves, and also the kind, tender parts of self-compassion that treat ourselves with gentleness when we're having a tough time. Because often we need both of these. Just feeling in, just receiving, just noticing. And then just letting the hand drop down. Maybe just for the last moment, just coming back to the soothing touch that you preferred, if there was one. And spending a few breaths just there. So now inviting you to open your awareness back out to feeling of where the feet are, sounds in the room or outside of the room. If your eyes have been closed, then just taking in the room, looking around a little, offering any gentle adjustments to the body or movement. Hey. So it's an opportunity, if anybody is willing to share anything that they noticed about any of our soothing touch exploration.
I've always liked touching my heart, and often do that at the end of a meditation anyway. It just, I don't know, it's like you can sense it and it brings the heart to life somehow. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally. I love, what a lovely way of describing it. Yeah. Yeah. So something that feels good in your system, hey?
Yeah. And then I can actually feel the sense of love, and I can't help but smile and give not only myself compassion, but for everything around me.
Wow, yes. Yeah, interesting. So it kind of shifts the outer as well as the inner, hey?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
These are the resources for everyone. So if this has whetted your appetite for a bit of self-compassion practice, then there's a whole range of resources here, from practices to guided recordings to books to whatever kind of resonates with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kate. Well, it's lovely to be able to sit through this again. I've already heard your talk once, and it's just really affirming to hear it again and to be able to start thinking about how to apply this. And I think one of the things I really like about it is that I feel that you're actually teaching us to bypass our brain. So we're bypassing all of that analytical stuff, all of that that sort of talking and all of that sort of stuff to ourselves, and we're actually going straight to the core of who we are and how we feel, and to activate that innate caring system, which I think is a really valuable tool to have. And also, it's really good to hear that we need to practice, because you're right, sometimes it doesn't feel quite natural, does it, to do this. And it's like any new skill that we get, that you have to practice and practice until it feels comfortable. And it's good to hear that practice is a really important part of it. And about applying your own soothing balm. What a lovely image that is. And I think it really felt like that when you were leading us through those exercises there at the end. It really felt that I could feel the improvements, and feel the soothing stuff starting to happen. So thank you so much for coming and speaking to us again. It's been really wonderful, and it'll be great to have this recording, and we can sort of refer back to it as we need to. So thank you so much. It was great.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy, and I love your summary. It is a practice, and as I said at the beginning, we don't even need to believe it. We can practice ourselves into change, and just, the way that we talk to ourselves, some of those soothing touch practices, even if we just, give it a little bit of a go, can really make a difference over time.